Hello, 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 hello. Let's try this again because it wasn't quite working correctly. Facebook has not been working for me today. I've been having one of those strange log in, log out, log out moments. Let's see if this is going to work. We're going to pray it works today. It's always these things that you always want to do these fabulous different projects with makeup and digital technology, and then you find out that everything is down for the day. So we will see what we can do. So let's see if the wonderful Lizzie can join us. Now, I don't know what was going on with Facebook earlier, but literally I was trying to log into my Instagram, trying to log into my Facebook, and it logged me out of both. So I don't know if there was some sort of technical disaster, but apparently there may have been. Hello,
Hi,
it's
how
working.
are you?
Oh my goodness, I was in such a panic.
Me too. I've had to move along because the phone is now plugged in. So you can see a photo in the back. You can see a nice painting in the background instead of a nice blank space.
Oh, cool. How are you? How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm in Brighton, so it's incredibly rainy today, and I've been running errands. So this has been my highlight of the evening.
Ah, it's nice to speak to you finally. We have been trying for a while, haven't we?
I know, and I'm such like a massive fan of all you do, and I really wanted to dive in to get to know you a little bit more and to share you on my platform because you're an icon in the beauty world.
Thank you for saying that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Where are you in the world at the moment, or are you in top secret
I'm
locations?
actually, no, I'm actually back home in London now. I was in Sri Lanka for a while, so I'm just sort of having landed, when the time difference and all of that is going on and the rain here. Yeah, so I've kind of landed back in reality.
Oh my goodness, Sri
Yeah,
Lanka. I bet the food was delicious. Sri
it
Lankan
was
food is the best.
delicious, it was. Yeah, I was on a retreat with my daughter. One of my daughter runs yoga retreats, and I always try and go along and enjoy it and have give them a little bit of a hand if I'm not working on anything. And I've been off for a while because of all the strikes and all the different things that have been going on in our film world. So I got lucky and I could go to the Sri Lanka retreat.
Oh my goodness, that sounds totally needed and
It
wonderful.
was lovely, yeah.
So I was so curious about all you do because I have seen your work for so many years and you have been doing work on film, not just in the makeup world, but also hair. Like, how on earth did you get started?
I did start in hair to start with, actually, because I had an interest in hair for a long time. But I think I always knew that I wanted to get into film in some form or other because even from the age of about 4, I was always watching all the sort of musicals and all the different sort of movies that had lots of hair and makeup work in it. So I was always fascinated by it. But I did start as a Saturday girl in a hair salon. So yeah, washing lots of people's hair and getting used to actually dealing with clients, which I think is really important in any job. When you're working with people, it's good to learn how to sort of deal with clients because you get all sorts, don't you? You get the ones that want to chat a lot, the ones that are quite tricky, but you have to, I always find it a bit of a challenge to win them over. And I think even from that very young age, I found that I was very good with particularly tricky people. And I think that's kind of followed me into the work that I do now, because often when there is a tricky actor or somebody who is known for being quite, particular, I end up with them. So, but I went from that into sort of doing hair competitions. I was taken under the wing of a very wonderful hair colorist who was doing a lot of hair competitions like the L'Oreal Color Trophy and things like that at the time. And that's where I got my sort of thirst for that show and tell thing, where you work out how it's going to be best seen on camera or best seen on the stage and everything. And I think from there, a few times makeup people didn't turn up for to do the shows, and I just dove right right into doing both. So I think I've always had that knack, really,
My
of doing
goodness.
both hair and makeup. But it gives you a lovely overview of how to look at something from all the way around, not just like when you photograph things. It's sort of it. You have to get it perfect with the lighting and everything. But with our work, it goes through different scenes, different sort of scenarios, and so it was always very interesting to sort of work out how best it would look in the different scenarios. And I think that kind of led into my sort of training for hair and makeup for film and TV.
It's like when people do like, because obviously a lot of my audience that watch me start out on YouTube. So I was the first generation of social media beauty people, and there was very limited knowledge. There wasn't things that you could research. So I looked at older books, and I looked at things like obviously the Kevin Aquan ones, or even looking at Wade Bandy's books and things
Yeah.
like. Did you have any like person that was sort of like, or a resource that sort of gave you some tips with the beauty side of things, like the makeup?
Mm, not really. I was very self-taught to start with. And I used to look at all the fashion shows because I wanted to sort of get into the fashion side originally. And I did all my training for like hairdressing, beauty therapy, wig making, and business. And I was due to go and live in Italy and do the Milan fashion shows and everything. And then I read while I was in the salon, I read, that Thames Television were doing a training school, and I think it was going to be their second training school that they'd ever done. And it was on a par with the BBC sort of hair and makeup for TV training. And I decided to just write into it for some reason. And there was like 3,000 applicants and 3 jobs, and I managed to get one. And then I cried because I wanted to go to Italy. But I decided to stay put and do the course, which was like 6 months in the actual training school, and then the rest of 4 years basically training underneath different people on different shows. And I got very lucky because I already had all the big hair experience. We did prosthetics and everything, and I was really excited about that. And I got offered to sort of go off with the guy that was doing our prosthetics for us to sort of be his trainee at the time. But I decided to sort of be sensible and stick with the training sort of classes that I was already in for, because it was I was really enjoying it, and I didn't know where to go. And years later, I wondered where my career would be had I gone just into prosthetics. But I always have a little bit of that prosthetics going on in whatever I do anyway. So I do oversee and I do design some prosthetics, even though on the bigger jobs we do have more of a prosthetics designer that comes in with us, and so we work together to make the different looks work depending on how much of a prosthetic it is or how much of an aging it is. So we all work together with it. But I've always kept that going as well, because I'm really interested in it. It's just that once you do the bigger movies, there's always going to be a prosthetics designer on board as well, and you also get your favorites that you work with, and it is a nice team to sort of pull it all together. And on quite a few jobs that I've done, like last night in Soho, we had like 25 prosthetics people and 25 makeup artists working on all the shadow men sort of every evening, trying to get them out and ready. So that was like a big team aspect. But I think if I didn't know about prosthetics, it wouldn't be quite as easy to pull off. So I've always felt most makeup designers in film have got knowledge of prosthetics, even though they end up working alongside other prosthetic designers as well.
I'm like the world of prosthetics mystifies me in so many ways, because the you have to, I think that's one of the things you have to almost learn by making mistakes in so many ways, because when you get it wrong you remember the next time never to do that again. It's
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people still carry on with like the old fashioned. We used to do stuff with like tissues and glue and sort of and try and sort of pull it all off. And now there's all these amazing products that sort of get used. So it's quite hard to keep up with it. So it's nice to have our prosthetics teams around us so that we can keep on top of what's coming up. And yeah, it is very much I mean, you have to do quite a few tests before before the directors and before you put it on camera, sort of have a look at it and decide that it's working. And also there's that massive time factor. On the last job that I did, we had to age somebody, and he was in nearly every shot of the film. So the fact that we were shooting for, I don't know, like 20 weeks, and we had him on every single day, we had to make sure that the makeup wasn't going to take so much of his time, especially when you've got American actors as well. You've only got them for 12 hours of the day, from the minute they leave their hotel to the minute they go back to their hotel at night. So if you do a 4-hour makeup, by the time they've got them on camera, and then it takes a good hour or so to take it off in the evening, you have to take all of that into account. So it's I'm a kind of less is more type of person. So if you can do it with do it with makeup, and do it with sort of some of the prosthetics, and not overly cover the face. I love to see the actor's actual face as well, but there have been some wonderful makeups recently where the actors were wearing almost a full-blown mask, to look like, that's a very different style to kind of my style. I really like to sort of see the person underneath it.
That is so fascinating. And I wanted to ask you about like what you thought about how the makeup industry as a whole has changed. Because I remember when I think obviously because social media has made the world quite small in terms of where things are very regional. You go to Asia for certain products, or even when I was learning makeup, I'd have to go to a pharmacy to get those biodermas like back in
Yeah,
the day,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything was so separated, and now everything's come together. And we've seen such advances, even in drugstores. You can get things that you could only get in Charles Fox 15 years ago now.
That's why
And it's
there's
like,
no
how,
Charles Fox as such,
yeah,
is there anymore?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Although it's nice because people have got, people can get to it, and anyone can play with it, if they want to, and if they become better at it or whatever. The sky's the limit, isn't it? Really, and it is nice that it's more accessible to people, and it's not. I think in Britain we're much more open to having new people coming into the industry, and I think in other places where the unions are so much stronger, it's harder for
Mm.
people to break through. But then I think you miss out on quite a lot of talent, because I do love I love getting our trainees in. I'm not a teacher as such in a school, but I do love having our trainees, and because once they've got to the stage where they can be a trainee, they're so much easier to sort of mold. And I don't like doing the very beginning thing, but I love it when they first come on set, and their eyes are like popping and they're so excited about it. It's such a wonderful time to sort of get somebody fresh and sort of see what their talent is, and help to mold that, or help them along. It's nice to have that.
Oh my God, yes, because it's like alchemy. It's like, and especially when you add the layer of film, because I think so many people don't understand like the way that lighting can really transform what your eye sees in
Yeah,
person and what the
yeah,
screen sees. It's that to know how to put the depth into a face
yeah.
sometimes is a task in itself, I think.
I'm very fascinated with all of that, and I've always been a very, very close to the DOPs. I love to sort of see how they're shooting, and how they're going to light things, because we could do an amazing sort of aging makeup, and it could look really terrible if it's got a really flat light on it, and it's not, doing us any favors. Although with the rush of everything nowadays, everything works so fast. It's become harder to sort of make sure that your makeup is under the best light. And a lot of time you do watch it, and because like things like when we did Rocket Man, we had prosthetics on him nearly every day on Taron, and it was quite hard to sort of watch it going through, because everything was so fast, to see maybe not the best light at the time and sort of try and adjust things. And so there's always those little challenges because it's not even, you might be on a really massive film, but you still have that time limit. Like I was saying about the last job that I was doing, you have to sort of work out what to keep and what to drop and what's going to work in the best way for the movie, for the story, for telling the story of how this person's life is. So we had a lot of that on Rocket Man because he, we did so many of different sort of times in his life. So there was a lot of bald caps and wigs and all sorts going on with him when he was like, going through his drug period and and then to the happy times as well. So it was a challenge, and it was a rather wonderful challenge actually in the end. At the time when you're going through it, you're kind of thinking, how have I let myself get into this? It's so hard to like push it through, and what will it look like? And it is, I've always been really excited about, the strain that you go through to get it to a certain state. And then when you see it come to life on film, it's really exciting. So I've always been this film addict anyway, buff. So seeing the characters like Guardians of the Galaxy, when we made all the different characters look the way they were going to look in the film. The first time we ever saw them together was when they did that cherry bomb scene where they're walking through, and we cried to see them all sort of coming on together. It just it was a real sort of aha moment for us. I really loved it, and I'll never forget it actually.
Oh my goodness. It's like it's such like I think it's such a reference point to people that will watch this back, and I'll repost this on my platform for everyone else to enjoy. But was there like a moment where you saw a film and you recognized the beauty of the makeup? Because I remember when like Tim Curry was in the Red Devil Legend makeup, like I was like, oh my God, because everything was so proportionally bigger than you'd seen like in a Halloween store or something. That was my moment. But what about you?
Wow, that's a difficult question. Because I mean, I love so many different styles as well, whereas a lot of people get known for doing specific styles, don't they? And I've always been dipped in and out of all sorts. So I don't know that I'm gonna have to think about that one and send you a message.
Yes, tell me.
That's quite a difficult one.
Because I always go back to like I've got like because I'm a bit of an OCD collector, but I put everything in like hard drives. Like, I've got pictures that were on the internet when I was like a kid that I saved. So I've got like a scrapbook sort of digitally. And I remember like when I saw all the Fellini images and all those like incredible movie looks, and I was like that because back when they were doing film makeup then, that was like such a metallic next to matte fantasy. Like the textual stuff that I think that it was almost like how do you do that with the products of that era?
Well, and also your lighting was very, very sort of much more minimal than it is now, but very, very clever at the time. But they used to spend quite a lot of time in makeup, didn't they? Because they would actually do the very American thing of like taking the whole face shape away and then paint it all back in.
That's what I do. I'm a gremlin under this. I'm a gremlin under the polyfiller.
I was always fascinated with the Greta Garbos and sort of and the Universal monsters, the thing that I kind of grew up with, and I used to absolutely love Dracula. And I remember from very young sort of going to bed with my garlic. But I couldn't stop watching it. But because I think of those wonderful makeups, I think that's when I got drawn in. Like every Saturday afternoon, I'd be at the cinema, watching all these amazing sort of, black and white films and all sorts. And I think my daughters have got that from me as well, because we still do it now. So yeah, we still do it now. But I mean, that's definitely where I got hooked.
Did you ever make up like a character yourself that wasn't part of the script, or you completely and utterly modified something where it was like they had an idea in their head, but you were just like, no, I think that in that context it could be this?
Yeah, we did quite a lot of that. We did a lot of that on Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's why it was so exciting to do, and also because it wasn't one of Marvel's big comics. They didn't really expect it to be such a big hit, and
Mm.
so we had a lot more freedom to design and sort of offer up things that weren't necessarily in the script. And even with the Drax makeup, which I mean, he ended up with the prosthetics guys, but when we were looking at it and how they were going to do it, I mean, originally James Gunn wanted it to be quite a flat makeup, you know, but I kind of has said, well, that's all been done before, so we need to sort of add different things and sort of make it more 3D, give them blood vessels, do all of that. So I've done quite a lot of that, and a lot of the alien girls in that were all things that kind of came out of my head, really.
Oh
So
my
like, although
God.
if you remember those, you know, I can't remember what the place was. It's where they sort of go, and there's where they go into another universe, and they've got quite a lot of those beautiful women that are kind of alien though, but they're part human. A lot of those were developed sort of with me just practicing on people and sort of finding things that the director would like,
My
basically.
gosh.
So it was
I m-
exciting.
my favorite makeup is the Nebula makeup because I could not recognize that that was the same actress initially. The depth of everything made
Yeah,
and the eyes, the
yeah,
proportions of everything went that way. And I was like,
yeah,
that is just genius because
yeah.
often when you introduce like elements of the face that are like mechanical looking, it
Mm.
dominates and doesn't look like it's part of something.
Part of
It's
it. I think it worked really well. That was David White's design, actually, who was our prosthetics designer on Guardians of the Galaxy. I think he did a really great job. I think they've kind of changed her in 2 and 3
mhm,
quite a bit, but I think what happened with the first Guardians was that it was all quite raw, and I think because we made it look really real. I think that's what captured the imagination of the director and the sort of the people that were watching it. It was, yeah, I think he did a really good job on that. He did a really nice job on that. But I had to cut all her hair off, didn't I? Bless her. She had like really long, beautiful hair, and I had to sort of shave her head on camera, and then I kind of talked the directors and the producers into not releasing that for a while because I think they allowed her to release it because they were going to release it as part of the big hoo-ha of like, this is what's happened for Guardians of the Galaxy. And I really felt for her because she had such big, thick, beautiful hair, and we had to like shave it all off.
my
Um,
gosh.
so there were quite a few moments for that.
With when it comes to like the industry of working in films, specifically films, because we've had like the SAG-AFTRA strikes and people have not been able to even promote what they've been doing. And
Yeah,
often when obviously when you're working on a long project, you're not allowed to share any of the images. Do
yeah,
you
that's what
find
we've
it
got. It's weird because I look at sort of your ID and I look at other people
oh
and a lot of the prosthetics guys can put quite a lot up, but I think I'm always very careful because I don't want my actress or actor to be upset by photos that are put up. So it's quite hard to put up photos that are showing the progress for
mm,
that reason, because you don't want to put those kind of photos up for the world to see when you're in the makeup room, you're practicing and you're not sure if it's going to work or not, but then it lands as the makeup that you're going to do. And then a lot of the time when you have done the makeup and it is the makeup that's going out, you haven't got time to photograph it. So
yeah.
a few times we've done those little, what are they, when you kind of, bit old fashioned, aren't I? I keep forgetting the names for everything, but
No, like the
when you
Polaroids.
tape it all and play it on. We did a couple of those with Taron, and we did one with Tom Hiddleston as well for Thor 2. So I've done a few of those, but they're still on my phone. They haven't really gone out, because I feel that you have to respect the actor as well, and you have to check with them. And a lot of the time, when they've actually done the movie and they've done the press and everything, when we're allowed to put that stuff on, they don't want that going out. They want to move on. So it's
Right.
quite hard like that. I've kind of always said that it's quite difficult. You can't just keep posting stuff when the actors like moved on, and but I've kept it for myself. So I've got like a record of what went on. But it's so interesting being in the makeup room. I mean, it is the part of the excitement is developing the looks, and then doing them for the everyday thing is like it's just a different excitement, isn't it? But that thing of like getting a look that works for the actors is, I mean, even with last night in Soho, the girls had to sort of look like each other. The two actresses had to sort of turn into each other basically. So that was really exciting to do, and it was all 60s as well. So it kind of brought in that kind of the history as well in, and then we had all the shadow men that were all prosthetics and sort of painted grey, and so I mean, what's nice about our job is that you've got all that you've got so many different things going on at the same time. On the last job that we've done, which hasn't been released yet, it's an Apple series called Disclaimer, where we did with Alfonso Cuarón. We've got quite a lot of makeup going on in there, so it'd be interesting to see when that comes out,
Oh
what's
my
still
God.
there and what isn't. But
I
it's a
can barely
much more
wait.
realistic. It's more of a realistic makeup. It's not a Guardians of the Galaxy, but it very subtle makeups. But everybody had very subtle work done, but it was all quite sort of deep and involved. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes out.
Oh my God, I cannot wait. And this is a weird question. If it's totally like you're just like, nah, we'll move on to the next question. Go for it. But within film, we've talked about so much stuff in the last like 5 years around sexism and about like
Yeah,
marginalized people within the industry, and like in my career, like when I was younger, I looked like a girl every day. You've probably seen lots of my old
yeah,
pictures. And when I started to get a lot of work online, I was doing all the things that everyone was meant to be doing, but the agencies didn't really know what to do with me, whether it was
yeah,
me as the person in front of the camera or it was me as a makeup artist. And I found
yeah,
it quite difficult because I just think so many times that I could have done so many different things, and lots of the projects that I've done have kind of been my own project. I've made my
yeah,
own thing as
yeah,
opposed to be
yeah.
first. But I didn't know if you'd seen any shift or change into the representation we see behind the scenes, because I know we've seen some movement when it comes to representation of people of color in movies, and we've seen lots of barriers be broken down. But do you notice that behind the scenes?
I think I have, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was watching that Troy the other night, and so many sort of the people that were in it weren't really, they didn't look like Greeks, and I'm Greek and I kind of I studied the classics, and I kept looking at it going, oh, how did that kind of person turn up in that? But it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Because I think that's the whole point of it, that we can break that down, and we can sort of, you can turn up with, an Indian person where a Greek person might have been, and I think that is happening, and I'm really pleased it is. I mean, I don't know how true to the stories we need to be anymore, because people have imagination. We can think for ourselves, and I think we're being allowed to think, aren't we? The audience should be
Yeah.
allowed to think for themselves. I've always been a big believer in that, and I think because I come from an immigrant family as well, I've always ended up with a very mixed crew from my point of view anyway. And I love that mixture as well. I think it sort of brings different things to the table. So I have English girls, I have Greek girls, I have I have Italian girls and Jamaican girls, and boys. All my Italian boys, and
I'm a mix of all that
Spanish.
you just mentioned myself. I'm a mix of all the above.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's really wonderful to be able to have all of that. I mean, I've tended to choose movies that shoot in London because I've got a family. I've got 3 daughters, so I've always like tried to stay closer to home. So I kind of maybe limited myself in some ways by sort of just mainly trying to choose stuff that doesn't take me away for too long. But I still, you know, even because the reason I'm saying that is because if you shoot away, you tend to meet sort of other, you know, people from different countries and maybe bring them over with you. But I haven't really had that situation where I haven't met people from other countries that want to come and work here. I guess now with Brexit and everything, it's more difficult, isn't it,
Yeah.
to have that. I mean, we shot part of our film, our last series in Italy, so we had an Italian team as well, but we all mixed really well. I think, yeah, the barriers are breaking down, and you know, I'm seeing a lot more boys in our. I mean, always in film, men have always been quite sort of high up in. You know,
Yeah.
they work their way through the steps quite quickly, I think, more so than maybe it's because there's fewer of them and they kind of stand out a bit more. I don't know, but
But how many
I
get
think
sent to work with the difficult ones?
ah, yeah, that's the thing. So I think it has been a little bit of a struggle as well to sort of make sure that women are, you know, once you reach the top of your game, because maybe, you know, women do go off and have children and haven't got maybe as many movies on their CV as the male counterparts have. It has been quite tricky to try and make sure that we're being paid the same.
Yeah.
So there's always been that kind of thing, and not that money is everything, but I think you have to know what you're worth as well, don't you? I think the same
Yeah.
with what you're doing, and I know that when I was doing, you know, commercials and all sorts, because I've kind of done the whole lot. I've done commercials
Yeah.
and photographic work and all sorts. It's quite hard because a lot of people, when they're starting up, they're expected to work for free, and how they're supposed to live. I mean, one of our little trainees was telling me about when she first came to London. She was Italian, and she kind of said, "I only ate once a day because I couldn't afford to eat anything." And I said, "What did you actually eat?" And when, you know, a bowl of spaghetti basically, and you're like, how can someone live on that and be expected to actually go out and work and not be paid? So I've always refused to have freebie people. If anyone comes along to work, they have to get paid, even if it's on a small production. I mean, it's not allowed nowadays on sort of the bigger productions to have people just trailing you and not getting paid, whereas on the smaller budget things, you know, you would be expected to not work for anything, and I just think you can't do that, and you can't do that to people. You have to respect the fact that they're training and they are, you know, they're worth something. If you need them and they're on set, they're worth something.
Absolutely. Even today, I actually had to argue with someone because I'm not going to go into too much about it, but it's a
Yeah,
product thing.
yeah,
But they want to do it for pride, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll do it for pride, but I want to be paid the same as if it wasn't for pride. And it's
yeah.
like, it's
I
still
don't know
like,
why people think they can use that, because you're an artist, you know,
yeah.
and artists need to eat and pay their rent, you
And
know.
it's expensive. It's expensive to
All
build a
our
kit.
products are so expensive now, and also you can't keep them for very long. You've got to bin stuff, and also when it is something like Pride, you're going to have to buy specialist stuff for it, aren't you? And that's
Yeah.
not cheap either, is it?
No.
I think it's about everyone needs to respect each other, don't they?
Yeah. Exactly, and consider what you're doing for the value you're bringing,
Yeah.
and you've brought so much value to me in terms of inspiration for all the amazing work you've done. Do you have any advice for young'uns that are starting in the industry today? Like, how would you, if you were beginning in 2024, where would you start?
Oh, wow. Well, practice at home. I mean, practice on your friends. Like use your friends as your guinea pigs. Practice, lots of practice. And I think you do. I mean, I know it's really expensive, but I think you do need, if you're going into film, you do need some kind of formal training. So if you're not gonna be able to afford the rather expensive schools that are out there, you should do the courses that are at the universities or the colleges. You need to get some kind of formal training, and also I think because you need to be old enough to understand how to deal with clients, or people, actors in your chair. I think the salons are a really good start, do some salon work, go in and wash some hair and get to know people. And it teaches you how to behave with people, and, that etiquette of being on set as well comes from being in the salon, knowing how to deal with people. And it's much freer nowadays, but I still see sometimes when I go to the salon how nice it is that, people are being taught that etiquette. And it's very important when you come into the makeup bus and the makeup sort of section of film in particular, because I think it gets you somewhere if you know already. It's a complete slap in the face if you've never been on set and you've never been in a makeup trailer and don't know how to sort of behave. And unfortunately, sometimes a lot of people coming out of the very expensive makeup schools don't have that etiquette. Somehow they kind of think, right, I've done that really expensive course, but that's the beginning. You're still a trainee when you come out of those. And the more you kind of accept that and sort of practice and willing to learn and sort of be with people that can sort of pass their knowledge to you and everything, it's very, I think, where would I start? I would definitely make sure that I did some kind of course and work in a salon.
I
Did
was
you do
so.
any salon work?
Oh no, no! I was scouted as a model when I was 14, so I was sent around the world as like a little baby. I did not come from a wealthy family, and I had no knowledge of the world. I grew up in a little churchy environment, so I was
Yeah, yeah.
thrust into the world, and I was like,
Well, well
because I kind of was brought
done
up in a
you for look
very,
at where you are now, darling.
oh, thank you,
Well
thank
done
you.
you.
Thank you. I just always wanted to create my own thing, and it was like I wasn't even allowed to watch Billy Elliot when I was a kid. I was not allowed to watch like different movies, like so I would design characters constantly. So I would draw and draw and draw, and then I started to work with video games, and
Yeah,
I dived into the files of the video games, and I saw the pictures of the faces, and I
yeah.
copied it on me, and I started to use like paints and like crayons to paint on me, and I just started to try and learn from mistakes. But I
You're a
always
real
tried to do.
artist.
Oh,
You're a
thank
real
you.
artist.
Thank you. I mean,
Oh,
I've taken up nearly half an hour of your time, and I know I can't believe we finally got to do this. It's
I
been such
know.
an honor.
Oh, we should do it again as well when we've got some other things to talk about. So I think we should
Oh,
talk about how AI are kind of going to take over, and what they are doing at the moment. I think that there's going to be less and less work in the big crowd rooms for film, which I think is quite sad for people that are training and coming in, because that's where they learn a lot of their trade. But it's all about cutting the money, isn't it? Cutting money back.
yeah,
So I'm
and
kind of looking
cutting the
into that
soul.
quite. I've been reading a lot about that because I've been off for a while. And it's quite scary for people, I think, isn't it? But
Well,
I
we'll
don't
do
think
that. We'll
they'll
do a part
ever.
two. We'll do a
Sorry?
part two, and We'll do a
Yeah,
part two and dive into that because I'd love
yeah,
to talk about that.
yeah. Well, it's because you mentioned it before. That's why I thought we haven't talked about that, but we'll do that another time.
Yes, yes. And if you ever need someone that can be an assistant, I would jump at the chance.
Careful what you wish for.
Oh, I will. I will. All right,
All
Lizzie,
right.
thank you so much. Sending major love, and I will send you an email and we can do part two whenever you're free.
All right, darling. Take care. Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a lovely rest of
Bye.
your day.
Bye.